So let's talk about how I want you to organize your Desmos equations. I started with a blank graph just like you should. The first thing you want to do before you do anything else is go ahead and save this as your project that you're going to be working on continually. I mentioned this with the pine tree example, but you want to make sure that you are constantly saving your graph. This is not Google Docs where it saves automatically for you. You have to go up and save. So what you should see up here is untitled graph. Well, first of all, make sure you sign in. If you don't see your name right here, your email, then you're not signed in. You just want to use Google, so you'll just sign in with Google, and it should get you to where you need to be. Okay, so up here it says untitled graph. I'm just going to click it, and I'm going to name it. In this case, I'm going to name it Heart Example. Okay, you should see your name up here. You should not be able to click Save because really you haven't done anything yet, but that is where you'll go to click Save in the future. So now I'm going to start putting my equations in here. I've already written them all down. I have them all on paper. I know what my picture looks like, but it's time to enter them. The first thing I want to do is add in some organization. There's a few different ways you can do this, and this part I don't really care about. I'm just going to show you what you need to have, and then I'll show you some options later about what you could do. So where it says add item, besides just an equation, you have other options. You can add a note, which is just text, a table, a folder, and an image. The three that you will probably use this time for this project is folder, note, and expression. Okay. We're going to start with a note. We're going to start with the text, and I'm going to say line 1 because I want to go ahead and put in my stuff for my first line. Underneath it, you can always just click, and that will give you an equation. That's the default, but if not, you can always just do plus and add what you need. But underneath, it's already set up for an equation, so I'm going to go ahead and type it in. Y equals negative 3/4 x plus 3. There's my equation in slope-intercept form. Obviously, this is not going to create any sort of a picture if it goes on forever, so I need to add my domain. Remember that the way you do that is you use the squiggly brackets right here, and then you type your domain in as an inequality. So now I have the portion of my heart that I wanted. Okay, so there's my line. Underneath that, I'm going to use point slope form to show the exact same thing, right? So y minus y1, so my point that I used was this point right here. So y1 would be 6, so y minus 6 equals, I need my slope, which was 3/4, parentheses x minus x1, which in this case was negative 4, so I'm going to change this to a plus 4. Oh, I forgot my negative for my slope. Now, actually, learning experience, here we go. What we just realized, right, you can tell that this purple line is supposed to be this red line. They're supposed to be the same, but it's showing up opposite. It's got the right point right here, but it's going the opposite direction. That was my clue that I just messed up some of my slope. So when I add negative, I see that it goes right on top, which is what I want. Then again, you do the domain. Oops. All over again, and I see that my purple line is exactly on top of my red. And you can actually click these colors and it'll hide them so you can see if you did it correctly or not. Okay? Eventually you will have another form here called standard form, and I haven't changed mine. Let's see how quickly I could do that. 3/4 would be 3x plus 4y equals 12. Yay, good. And then again, you do the domain one more time. That's probably the thing you're going to get annoyed with the most, is doing these three things over and over and over. But again, when you're watching this video, you haven't learned standard form yet, so this one don't worry about yet. Just kind of skip that for now. You're just going to have 2 for each one. Okay, so again, if I kind of go back and forth with all these, they should all land on top of each other. So I've done line 1. So to do line 2, I do the same thing. I could click here, but that's giving me an equation. I want it to be a note. So I click note, and it's there. So I do line 2. And I start over. I keep going, but now I'm on my second line. Y equals, this time it is positive 3/4, x plus 6. I'm going to do my domain again. This time it's negative 2 to 0. I'm going to do point slope form. Y minus, I'm going to use this point this time. It doesn't matter which one you use. In fact, actually, I'm just going to use this one. I'm just going to trade right now because it's easier, because it's y-intercept 0, 6. So I'm going to do y minus 6 equals 3/4 parentheses x minus 0. And I see that it landed right on top, which is good. Do my domain again. Keep getting my signs here. And I see that it's falling on top again. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you're going to keep going with the same process over and over and over. Whenever you finish, you add a note to write the new line number. Okay. I've heard a lot of questions about how do you change the colors. In order to do that, oh, I'm going to pause. I'm going to click save. just because I saw it. Whenever that green save button is up there, that means you've done something new that you haven't saved yet, okay? Again, please click that as often as possible. I try to remind you at the end of each class period. But that's super duper important. Every year I have somebody who doesn't click it and loses their whole project, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to click this gear here. When I click the gear, it gives me the ability to change colors. I'm going to do a heart eventually. Y'all probably can't tell. So I'm going to make these all red, and I'll eventually get to my heart. But that's one way to change the color. You can also change the type of line, so you can make them into like dotted lines if you wanted to. What else can you do in here? You can delete a line. Hopefully you don't want to. You can copy a line, which is kind of nice, but that's only helpful if you have two lines that are very similar. And then you can convert it to a table, which you should never need for this project. Okay? So the only other thing that you might need for organization as far as Desmos is concerned is a folder. When you make a folder, it's just like any other, like Schoology, anything else, when you're making folder Notability. If I want to say like main lines or something like that, okay? If I want something to be in the folder, I either want to create the folder first, and in fact, I'm actually going to just do this. I'm going to move it down here, which this is another option. You can move things around. And when I go to make the next one, I want to drag it over like this. Did you see how that little line appeared right here? So then I can add in like, well, I'm just making this up, so it's not going to be close or anything. Y equals -3 x + 4. When I go to the next one, notice it's not there, right? It's not scooted over. So every time you make a folder, you have to kind of drag whatever you're working on in line with the folder so it has this line. Now, if you want to do folders later, you can. So if I wanted to actually put all these back into this folder, you can. You just have to drag them one by one, and that gets a little tedious, okay? I do have people who organize their entire thing in folders, though, and it ends up looking really nice at the end when you turn it in, because you just close them all, and all your project is kind of hidden right here, tucked away. This also helps whenever at the end, if you want to add in shading or circles, you can kind of have a folder that says shading, a folder that says circles. So you can organize it that way if you'd like to, but you don't have to. I'm also okay with what I had before without, oh, look at that, undo. If you don't have the folder, I'm also okay with that. You can always take things, you can take things out of a folder. Maybe you can't. I'm learning as I'm making a video. Well, I'll have to learn. I'll have to ask about that. So maybe this is, again, a lesson to learn. If you think you may not want a folder, then maybe don't put them into a folder. I'll get back to you on that if I learn something. Alrighty, so hopefully that gives you a picture of what your final Desmos project will look like. Let me actually show you a finished one, just so you know. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this, so give me a second. Here we go. Alrighty, so let's find a good one here. This is a good one. So you can see again, this person has line 10 with their 3 lines, line 18 with their 3 lines. They organize it a little differently. I would rather them be in order and say line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. That's just easier for you to navigate and for me to navigate, but this does just kind of show you that, again, she has 3 forms for every single one of her lines. Okay. So again, it's better if you don't jump around like she did, 67, 71, 76, but if you can do line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, then it's easier to scroll and find what you need. Because if I ask to scroll, where's line 483 each way? I have no idea. So put them in order, that helps. She obviously didn't use folders, but she did use like even bigger titles, so she's diagonal lines as a text, and then more text that says line 10, etc. So you can do that too if you want to. Alrighty, let me know if you have any questions about Desmos. I think I've hit it all. We will obviously be working on this for a while in class, so you are more than welcome to come up and ask me a question.